in a second, or we're live. Okay, aloha, and thank you for joining us for Sketchnoting with Amanda Taylor. I met Amanda in a course we took over the summer through EdTech team and was totally inspired by her sketch notes. And so now she's here sharing with us. So thank you so much, Amanda, and I'm just gonna turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Ellen. All right.
I'll mute. Is there an echo? Should I mute the mic?
There's not an echo on my side, but it's probably not a bad idea.
Okay, I'm gonna mute the mic.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see. All right. So, first, I want to start by introducing myself. Like Ellen said, my name is Amanda Taylor. I live in Orange County, California, and I am an EdTech TOSA, Teacher on Special Assignment, for the school district here, Saddleback Valley Unified. Before becoming an EdTech TOSA, I was a former high school teacher. I taught career and technology, specifically family consumer sciences, for 7 years in Texas. Recently, I became a Google certified trainer. And of course, the reason I'm here, I'm an amateur sketchnoter. I've only been sketchnoting since this spring, so probably around April. So I'm going to share a little bit about how I got started sketchnoting. That's going to be our 10-minute intro. And then we're going to have some practice time to draw, to build some skills. And then we're going to watch a short video. And for those of you that are watching, you'll have a chance to practice sketchnoting yourself. Materials, you can use paper pencils, totally fine. You can use a tablet if you have one. I prefer the app Paper by 53. It's my favorite, mainly because it's free and it's versatile enough to use, but it still has some really good functionality to it. Procreate is also an option. It's a little bit more expensive. And there's also Bamboo, which I think is the first app I ever used. And then last but not least is a growth mindset attitude. Sketchnoting, a lot of people think they can't do it because they don't know how to draw, but it's not really about ability. It's about visualizing your notes in a different way, and it can really be transformative personally and also for your students. So let's get started. I wanted to show you an introduction about what brought me to sketchnoting, and I'm going to move my stuff around a little bit here. So I've got my iPad in my lap. So you guys are going to get to watch me sketchnote live through the introduction, and then we're going to practice. So number one, I can't draw. I really can't. I kind of suck at it. This is the extent to what I could draw as of about 6 months ago, and maybe the occasional stick figure, and that's about it. I drew bubble letters in high school, you know, because passing notes was a big deal before we had text messages. But as you can see, I kind of have messy handwriting, and I'm definitely not a perfectionist. So, but what I do know is I get bored really quickly, especially in classes where it's all auditory. I learned over the last 7 years as a teacher that I am a visual learner. So by doodling my notes, I learn better. And what I found over the years is that if I doodle, I actually pay attention. So something about me drawing is helping me process those notes mentally in my head. So sketchnoting is not new. It's just kind of a reimagined form of note-taking. So it's just note-taking, but visual, instead of just writing down words. And words are still fine, but the words are augmented by pictures, which is also great for those of us who can't spell. Yay. Okay. So it's okay if you can't draw. It's okay if you, especially if you get bored writing notes, you'll be able to, hopefully this will help keep your attention. And know that sketchnoting is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. As you can see, just me drawing little sketches. I'm really not that great. And again, my husband says I have crappy handwriting. So, all right, let's go to the first one. This is my very first sketch note. I listened to a talk by Chris Bell at an Ed Tech Team Summit, and this is what I drew. And I was actually really proud of it. I look back at it now and I cringe a little bit because it's not as pretty as I make my sketch notes now, but I had the general idea. This is what normally my notes would look like in any given class, sitting through a church service, wherever. Anytime I have to sit down and listen to something, this is kind of what it looks like minus the color. Using the app for the first time, I was able to color without being a distraction, pulling out markers and pencils and coloring and everything. So I listened to his talk, and then this is what I ended up with. And my friend sitting next to me, Ro, was really impressed with it. She said, you should put that on Facebook. And so I put it on, or you should put that on Twitter. So I put it on Twitter, and then I started researching more and more sketchnoters and realized that my sketchnote was good. It was a great first attempt, but it definitely could be better. It was missing some organization, and, you know, I can't really tell like what was the point, how did we get started, that sort of thing. So this is my most recent sketch note, listening to Lisa Highfield's talk about time to wonder and hyperdocs. And I remember very clearly what her talk was about because of the way that I organized my sketch note. So this specific sketch note is organized kind of in a radial fashion. So it starts here. So it starts here in the center with the title. And then she kind of went through and answered all of these questions throughout her talk. And then down at the bottom, you can see I've got her name, when the talk was, and kind of what it was about. The great thing about digital is that I can just press undo and undo all that coloring I just did. So let's move on. This is another one that I recently did. This was actually a sketch note that some friends of mine asked me to do. I've got two great talented people that I've met through all of these EdTech adventures, Mr. B and Mari Venturino. They created Breakout EDU Digital, and so they asked me a couple of months ago to create a top reasons why to try Breakout EDU. So I made this for them based off of a list that they gave me, and it was a lot of fun to do. This one took me a little bit longer because I was creating it, wasn't really listening to something and creating it. I was kind of crafting from the very beginning. So a couple months ago, when I first gave this talk, we had just listened to a keynote by Jeff Heil, who I had listened to a couple months earlier, and I had written this sketch note for. So I was going to show this to the class. As I'm setting up, I realized that one of the girls in the class had also listened to that talk and created a sketch note. So this is my sketch note of Jeff Heil. He is a digital learning innovator, and his big thing is what if. What if we gave every child the possibility to learn and be the best that they could be? Like, what would that look like? And so this is what I got out of his talk, but this is what Michelle got out of his talk. So same talk, but it looks a little bit different, and she sketch notes live. This is a picture of her notebook, and she sits there with pen and pencils and markers and sketches while the person speaks. Mine obviously was done digitally, and then I go back in and make it prettier as I have time. And then on that same day of listening to Jeff Heil's at the GAVE Summit Day 2, the girl sitting next to me made this sketch note. So again, it's the same content, but it looks different. So don't worry if your sketch note, like mine obviously isn't as, it's still pretty. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but the style is different, and that's okay. Everybody's style is kind of unique and it's their own. So I love that I can look at this and know that this is Jen, like, and this is so Jen, all of her little doodles and stuff. And then here's another person from that same day. Again, technology, high expectations, and the art of relationships. It's the same sketch note, just 3 different viewpoints, and then you had the live viewpoint down in the beginning. So moving on, remember the camel in the sketch note earlier? This is a couple months later. I was practicing some more, and this is what I came up with. So again, a little bit more writing, a little bit less words, practicing with screenshots inside of the app that I was using. And I remember more about this talk than I did the one before. And then this is about the time that I met Ellen. This is when I was really starting to learn some skills and some basic sketching to make my sketch notes prettier, which is really what I want, because I want to be able to share them and I want you to be able to tell what they are. So this is one that I made for the course that we did this summer, the EdTech team leadership cohort. And this is the honeycomb that they go through, the courageous leaders, empowered teachers, inspiring spaces, etc. Future ready schools. One of the things that I encourage people when they start getting into sketchnoting is give yourself some low stakes practice. This summer I went to Texas for 4 weeks, as is our habit. We go to visit family, and I thought this would be a perfect time for me to practice some skills without a lot of risk. So I actually went through and created that cute little watermark down at the bottom and sketchnoted our days. I sketchnoted just something simple. This is just a screenshot of the whole grid. And I went through and sketchnoted a little memory from each individual day so I could remember our trip, because we're there for so long, it all kind of blends together. And then, as I said, I sometimes get bored in church, and this helps me stay awake. Instead of filling out the little note card that they give me, my husband is okay with me bringing my iPad, and I get to sit there and doodle in church, which I really love. And then this is one of another sketch note that I made that I'm really proud of about learning spaces. And again, just practicing some more of that. How do I take these concepts that I've learned and really cement them into my brain? I visually represent them in my notes instead of just having a notebook full of pages of words, because the words don't mean as much to me as these pictures do. Again, more low stakes practice using Procreate, which I have used a little bit, but really haven't invested a ton of time in. This is me just literally putting an image on top and then sketching on top of it, just getting used to fonts and different styles and things like that. And this is another version of patterns. So a lot of mine are radial, so they go in a circle. This one is set up in columns. So Tracy Polzer, talking about the imposter syndrome, spoke in 3 sections. So she stopped and stop comparing your ideas, give your brain the finger by honoring where you are, and then getting comfortable with being social and interacting with others in the community. So what I want to start with our practice is knowing that you can create anything with 5 simple shapes: a square, a circle, a dot, a triangle, and a line. So that's what we're going to do today. So hopefully you have paper in front of you and you can practice with me. So what I want you to do on your paper right now is draw what I just drew. So I want you to draw a square, a circle, a dot, a triangle, and a line. If you're using paper, you can kind of follow along with me with what I'm doing. So you'll start with this grid here. These are all of your different pens. You've got a fountain, a pencil, a marker, a ballpoint pen, and then a paintbrush. I actually like to move that over, and I like to draw with the ruler pencil because it creates a solid shape for me, which is really nice. If I really want something that's not a perfect shape, then I just don't close it. Well, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Nope, it's going to be finicky. So you can also use that one. Good, it gives you a nice thick line, which I like. So triangle, lines, dots, squares. Okay, so everybody hopefully has their shapes. And now we're going to move to the next part. I want you to think about the shapes that you just used, and I want you to draw these 5 things. So a house, a city, a computer, earth, and a car. So I'm going to draw a house. A house is pretty simple. We've been drawing them since we were in grade school, hopefully. So a square with a triangle, and maybe another square, rectangle actually. So here's my house. Can even get fancy and draw a tree outside. Earth. is pretty simple. It's a circle. And then I'm zooming in and out using paper by using 2 fingers and pinching and pulling, just like you would to zoom in on a picture on almost any mobile device. So again, it doesn't have to be fancy, but if I can kind of imagine what the United States looks like in South America, and we'll put Hawaii over there and Alaska way up there. And then how do I make this look more like Earth? Well, if I color it, there'll be little doubt as to what it is. It won't just look like a circle with an amoeba inside of it. It will look like Earth. And there. Ta-da! The great thing about paper, which is one of the reasons I love using technology over old-fashioned pencil and paper, is let's say I really like this Earth and I want to use it more. I can use my scissor tool to cut it and move it and then copy it. I can't scale it bigger or smaller. That's actually something that you can do in Procreate. But Procreate, again, is very feature heavy. So if you're just starting and technology can be a little overwhelming, you might just want to start with something like paper or bamboo. Okay, so we've got a house and we've got an Earth. Let's draw a computer. My pencil tool is being funny. Okay, so for a computer, we're going to start with a trapezoid, which is technically just another version of a square, right? And then a rectangle. Okay, now to make it, my computer has a really big keyboard. We're going to draw our keyboard. And then we're going to draw a screen. And there you go. And here's my fancy computer. If you wanted to draw a desktop, you would just change the shape a little bit. So again, just a trapezoid, a rectangle, and a rectangle. Draw a little mouse with a cord. Looks like a computer, right? What you're looking for is the basic shape of the idea. You're not looking for like a Michelangelo work of art here. And then even an iPad. An iPad is pretty simple. It's just a rectangle with another rectangle inside as a frame, and then a button down at the bottom. And then a cell phone is a very similar setup. Could maybe even draw a flip phone if you really tried. Let's see if I could draw a flip phone. My grandmother misses flip phones. Said life was better when she had a, there you go, a non-smartphone. If you really wanted to be fancy, you could draw a little apple in there. Ta-da! Okay, so let's move on and go down here to city. A city, you would think, how would I draw a city? Think about what's popular in your city, what you're drawing. For me, that's pretty easy. I grew up in San Antonio, and we had a tower that, I'm just going to move that over. The Tower of Americas that was built for the hemisphere in the 60s. And it kind of looks like this. It actually looks a lot like many other towers, but it kind of has this shape. So if I drew this and you were anywhere in South Texas, you would know that this is the Tower of the Americas. So I draw my city, and I've got some buildings, just some rectangles and some squares, and maybe you draw some windows in there. And then for me, again, especially because I'm from San Antonio and our river walk is very popular, go. Add some defining features like some squiggly lines, and that makes my river. There's my gray. And then adding a little bit of color to highlight. And now I have my city. So be thinking about what makes your city noticeable. If it was New York, maybe it would be the Empire State Building, Seattle, the Space Needle. If it was St. Louis, it would be the Arch, Statue of Liberty. Maybe for Hawaii, it would be a beach. And then again, using a little bit of color to help kind of define the empty spaces. Don't be afraid of white spaces in sketchnoting. Not everything has to be colored in, but it is nice to use color as a highlighter to make things pop. Okay. All right, so house, computer, city, car. Car was one of those things I was like, I don't know how to draw a car without making it look silly, but it's actually not as hard as you think. So a car is just a modified rectangle. So if we draw a line, so here's the front of the car, and then we draw the hood, the back of the car, and then just leave space for the tires. And again, it's not perfect. I'm not going to be selling this of prints of my car, but that's okay. The purpose is to create something simple. So why do I show you a car? Well, car can be used to show transportation, industrial revolution, history. Lots of different things revolve around cars. And if I wanted to make this a truck, then I would just make the bed longer. One of the things that I drew this summer was we had an inflatable stand-up paddleboard, and we didn't have a pump for it. We didn't have the adapter. So we had to drive to a marina store, a boat store, and let them pump it up for us. But then we had to get it home. So we put this inflated stand-up paddleboard in the back of my dad's truck without the proper tie downs and drove it across a ginormous bridge in Corpus Christi, Texas, with me holding on to a rope, hoping that the rope wasn't going to fly out of my hand and that the stand-up paddleboard wasn't going to go flying out of the back of the vehicle. So we had it like here, and then I was sitting here holding on for dear life to this rope that was coming through, and the whole thing was shaking, and you just knew any second it was going flying out and go into the water. We made it home safely, but it was really scary. Okay, so we have some basic shapes here. You've got a house, earth, computer, city, and car. So why do I show you these shapes? Well, the reason is I used a similar set of shapes to create this. So did you draw yours, Alan? Let me see. Nice. Oh, palm trees. That's helpful. I like that. Okay. So this was the very first time that I sketchnoted, and I actually thought, wow, I can draw. This looks amazing. And what's funny is I brought this home and I showed it to my husband, who's my sounding board for anything new that I do. And he looked at that and he goes, oh, wow, that's cool. Who drew that? And I said, I did. I drew that. He's like, no, you didn't. I'm like, no, really, I did. Look, there's my tag down there at the bottom. I drew this whole thing. And he was really impressed, and I was impressed. And I learned some really basic skills like what I'm teaching you now. It was actually a much longer YouTube live video done by Brad Ovenell Carter. And much like this video, I sat there and listened to him. And every time he would draw something, I would stop and I would draw it. And then I would press play on the video, and then he would draw it, and then I would stop, and then I would draw it. And so what you're seeing today is a very condensed version of what he showed. But you can see here, just like I showed you before, I used a rectangle to make a box and some arrows. And then I practiced some font typing. And then here's my cars talking about transportation and just the idea that you can reuse shapes to tell a story and that it doesn't have to be overly artistic. I used this shape here to make a rocket. That same shape became a missile. So it's really just about versatility in your shapes and your drawing. Here's my River City. I draw San Antonio often because that's my home. And even here, drawing, there we go, drawing my cow. And then I don't know why I decided to draw a warthog, but just that simple idea. I could simply make this cow a horse by erasing the black and white and turning it into something different. So all you need is some basic shapes. Look, there's some Hawaii love for you. I always try to draw Hawaii in my pictures. So just some really basic shapes is all you need. So the other big thing is people. Okay, so I can't draw people. Most everybody can draw stick figures. So if you can draw a stick figure, you can draw people. So I want to show you the different type of people that I've learned to draw since I've been a sketchnoter. Really honestly, starting just with stick people, if you give them elbows and knees, and I didn't come up with this, you guys, I learned this. I'm just sharing with you what I have learned. So I'm going to draw a stick figure, and I'm going to give my person elbows. It's a really long hand. Elbows and knees. And already I've given him some life. So now I want my person to be running. So again, I'm going to give him elbows. Is he running for his life or is he jogging? I don't know. I don't know quite what to do with arms. I'm not a runner, so I'm at a loss there. Maybe my guy's just passively walking. Maybe if I really wanted him to run, I'd have to give him like more of a slant. There we go. Now he's running fast because this guy's a zombie and he's chasing after him. I don't know. You'd have to tell me why you run. Again, I'm not a runner. Zombie. Okay. So that's one type of person, adding elbows and knees. Another type of person is, and you'll see this in one of my favorite sketchnoters, Sylvia Duckworth. She draws these little I call them gumdrop people. I don't know what she calls them, but they look like little gumdrops to me. They're super cute. And so they have, and this is like way out of proportion. Let's try this again. Her gumdrop people aren't that big. So I've just drawn a little person, kind of updated my stick figure. There we go. Add some flesh tone to his face and some fun hair. And now I have a kid. So the next person that I like to draw, the next type of stick figure is a star person. This is what I draw when I have a lot of people to draw, or if I'm just in a hurry. because it's super fast. So I draw a circle, and then I draw arms, leg, arm. So a lot of times you'll see my little star people. You can also make it a little bit thinner, and I don't even know if I can make myself draw it. Let's see. So head, like that. So again, kind of adding the two together. So I've made a star person, but I gave him some elbows. So kind of blending this style here and then this style here. So you just kind of have to play around with people, the body shapes, and figure out what you want. You can also do more, and I've got, usually people is kind of where I have to draw again and again and again to get the body shape that I like, especially if I'm out of practice. That person has crazy arms. There we go. So here's a person here. I don't know why I always like to draw waist on my people. I don't want them to feel chubby. Okay. So just kind of playing around. The big thing is elbows and knees. Elbows and knees. Knees. That's not an H. There we go. And then trying out some different things. So Sylvia likes to do little gumdrop people. You could also do triangle people. Just add some hands on there and some feet. Or maybe a square person or even a trapezoid. So just practicing again those different shapes to get the people that you want. And then once you kind of find a style that works for you, then those are your people. So I love that I can look at different sketchnoters' work and I can tell almost immediately by their people who does it. Brad Ovenall Carter has a very specific style, so does Sylvia Duckworth and some of the others that I've seen. So once you get people taken care of, the next thing that you want to focus on is their faces, because as fun as the little ... line is, we can definitely add more expression to our stick people than just that. So this is your practice for that. So on your paper, I want you to draw 9 squares for me in the similar fashion that I have, and then you can draw the little guide post up here, here, and here. And what we're going to be making is this top row, these are the eyebrows, and the bottom row, or the row is the eyebrows, and then the column are the mouths. So for example, and I'm going to use my nice thick line here. So I'm going to go, and not in blue, but in black. So line, eye, nose, mouth. Eyebrow, eye, nose, mouth. Eyebrow, eye, nose, mouth. And then keep doing that all the way down until you fill up so this mouth. Oh, I did that backwards on that one up there. There we go. So keep going all the way through, and then you give them little noses. You can also practice more defined eyes if you wanted to. Something like this, just by drawing a circle and then drawing something inside of it. Kind of gives a little bit more of a defined eye, and you can look. So a lot of times if my person is wondering something, if they're thinking or contemplating, I have them looking up instead of looking down, although that makes this person look like they're worried. You can add a lot more expression just by adding a circle around the pupil. If your person was feeling a little crazy or a little tired, you would make them cross-eyed. Okay. So here's our face. And so what do all these faces mean? So here's my finished one. So here's kind of how they translate. You have, and depending on how you draw the eyes, it could be something even different. So you've got oh and oh really and sigh and oh nice. And sometimes I draw the eyebrows and sometimes I don't, but even knowing that I can do something a little different with the eyes and a little different with the mouth can make those different faces. And it's just, again, a smile, a frown face, and a line. So you can do a lot with those shapes. I see Ellen working, so I want to see your faces, Ellen, when you're done. I'm going to go in and mess with my eyes a little bit more. Nice. I like it. Okay. And you can also add color to your eyes too. You kind of have to play around with what works. So not even by outlining, but just by making it white and then adding some color, it adds a little bit of definition to the face. So, okay. And then, so here's a person that I spent a little bit more time on. You can tell instead of making the eyebrows one eyebrow, I made them two independent eyebrows. And again, she's looking up, it's got a smile on her face, and then kind of practicing with the arms and the legs. It's just a modified stick figure. And then by closing her mouth, again, this person's the same person. All I did was change her arms and the expression on her face. So instead of looking to the side, she's looking up, and instead of smiling, she's got her lips closed. And here's another person that I drew. Again, my little trapezoid teacher with the springy blonde hair, because to me that's totally cheating, just to draw a bunch of squiggle lines and then background it with color. And then my little star people over here on this side. Those are my students. I draw students very frequently as star people. Okay, so if you want, you can draw a person, and I totally pre-drew this to give myself some time. So I've got my little body drawn. I just did some curves to make it a teacher. And then again, I like sashes for some reason. And then for hair, you kind of have to figure out what works best for you. So I actually found some examples of good sketchnoting hair on Pinterest of all places. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll start with the circle, and then I'll go in and erase the parts of hair that, the parts that I don't want. So the great thing about Pinterest too is it's incredibly visual. So if you type in Sketchnote, or if you Google image search Sketchnote people, you'll be able to find a bunch of things. So I'm going to give her a nose ring. And give her some eyebrows. If I wanted to make her unhappy, I could give her an unhappy face. Big grouch pants. Or if she was worried about something. Although if she was really worried, I would probably change her eyebrows a little bit. So just by changing the angle of her eyebrows, now she's angry teacher. Now she just looks mean. Okay, let's change her back to happy teacher. And then by adding a little bit of color in the background, I can give her hair and some dimension. I find that making cartoon versions of people works a lot better than actually trying to sketch people. At least for me, it's just not in my skill set to be super sketchy. I try it and then it just turns out funky. The cool thing about paper too that I didn't mention before is you can actually adjust the colors really specifically. So if there's a tone that you're looking for, you kind of have these scales you can go through and find something that works for you. If you're on the very first one, if you go down 1, 2, 2, these 3 tones right here, the dark brown, the medium brown, and the light brown, I find those to be really good for skin tones. And sometimes here I usually make the brown a little bit lighter, and then this kind of beigey, peachy color is also a good skin tone. All right, so hopefully you had time to draw a person. Ellen, did you draw a person? Let me see. Nice.
Hey, Amanda. Whoa, that's loud, sorry. One of the things that we were going to say too is that, like, one of the things about living in Hawaii is we have a lot of cultural diversity, but there, like, when we make infographics, we can't find a lot of culturally diverse clip art kind of thing. So this would be a way to do that as well.
Definitely, to make your own. The great thing about paper is I can, let me switch this back over. I can bring in a photo from before. So I've got a whole bunch of photos in here. So let's just say this isn't a cultural photo, but this is a photo that I liked. And I wanted to copy over it. I mean, I could have just sat there and drawn it. And some people say this is cheating. And, you know, whatever. I say it's practicing. When you teach little kids to write their alphabet, you give them letters to trace over. So I feel like this is a similar thing. I'm just teaching myself how to draw these different shapes in a more symmetrical way. So you could pull in different aspects of what you want. So let's say I want this brain. So I'm going to pull this in. All right. And now I'm going to delete that photo. So my brain is still there. And then let's say I wanted to go out. Thank you for letting me know that my storage is full. And let's say I wanted to find a different photo. So now I'm back into paper, and you can take pictures of things. It doesn't have to be something that you find off the internet. I like the photo option because I can scale. So I pull that in. And now I can draw on top of it. I'm going to make that. And then when I go back, now I have that shape that I wanted. And then I can color it however I want to. And you can do that with just about anything. And then so now I've got these two images that I can then cut and paste and overlap with each other. And so it's really neat to be able to do that. Some of the images that you saw earlier, this one and this one, for example, I used these as clip art in the back of my Google trainer video, my application video, because I wanted something very specific and I couldn't find it. So I made my own version. And even something that we did the other day for our school board, I wanted something very specific in the background for the video that we made. So I made my own background using paper and then saving it as an image, which is really great. Okay, so what we're going to do for the last 15 minutes is I'm going to have you guys watch a video and then practice sketchnoting. This will be a little different since I don't have a room to walk around in to see how you guys are doing watching the video. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to change what I'm sharing. There we go. I want to... There we go. Okay. This is actually what I want to share, is this video right here. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is while you're watching this, I want you to watch it with an open mind and let your brain grab on to one or maybe two things that really sticks with you. Don't worry about memorizing the whole thing or wanting to sketchnote the whole thing. The purpose of this, because it goes pretty quickly, is just to pick one thing that really stands out to you, and then that's the one thing that you're going to draw when we're done. Okay, so that's our, let's see if I can get you back. So going from that video, I want you to pull out one thing that struck a chord with you. The first time I ever watched it, what really stuck out to me was the idea that we are training kids for jobs that haven't even been invented yet. My husband has had those types of jobs his whole adult career, constantly ahead of, you know, the stuff that he's doing now wouldn't have been a job for him in high school. So it's pretty powerful to think that you're training kids to be problem solvers and innovators, not necessarily to teach them to do a certain skill. It's more of just teaching them to have a variety of skills. So I want you to take a few minutes and draw what you pulled out from it. I'm going to draw myself, so I'm going to give us 5 minutes. We don't really have a lot of time to share, obviously, because it's not a classroom setting. But if you have any questions, I think there's a Q&A section on the bottom. We can use that. Or Ellen, if you've got people there, you can ask questions then. So I'm going to go back to sharing my iPad screen so you can see what I'm drawing. And then we'll post the link to that video in the description below if you want to look at it again. It was created by EF Travel, the company that sends students all over the world. And the video is actually old. It's a couple years old, actually. But I still find it really powerful. We show it to teachers quite often in trainings. So, okay, so I'm going to take a couple minutes and draw. I don't know how to spell entrepreneur. How sad is that? Such a weird word. Okay. So here is here's the rough basic of my sketch note. So nothing super fancy, right? But this is what I remember this time around. Again, I've watched this video probably 24 times now. And every time I pull something different from it. So preparing students to be innovators, problem solvers, creative thinkers, advocates, and entrepreneurs. So what I would probably do now is go back and draw a little something that makes me think of innovator, draw a little something that makes me think of problem solvers, draw something, again, creative thinkers, advocates, and entrepreneurs. So maybe entrepreneur, I would put a business logo, maybe Spanx or something like that. Maybe innovators, I would put Facebook or Google. Creative thinkers, artists with an artist brush, something like that. And then that would help cement, again, what are we doing? How are we preparing our students to be?
Hey, Amanda,
Yeah.
One thing that I find helpful with that is I go on Google Images and I type in the word and then I see what comes up there, and I don't draw, like I'm not drawing, I'm going to start drawing more, but when making infographics, those are the things that I look for if I can't think of an idea. And then from there, usually I find something. So I just wanted to add that in real quick.
Yeah, definitely. That's how I found the brain picture that you saw. Because I was like, what else can I do besides, gears and, a lot of critical thinking outside the box. You can do gears and earth and go back to those original shapes. But sometimes you want, something different. And for that, I found that brain, pulled it in, and then drew it that way. So, yeah. So, do you want to show me what you have, Ellen? Did you draw something? You muted yourself again. Future ready. Nice. I like your star people. Okay, so Ellen, do you have anybody else's that you want to share? You have to unmute yourself. Nice.
Oh yeah, because then you can see it bigger. This is Holly's.
Awesome.
Sketchnoting with her class. She went to a workshop. Oh, you guys are making me look bad now. Like, share. Yeah. This is Mr. B's.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Wow. You pulled out a lot of 46% of teachers. Yeah, I'm horrible with numbers. I would not have remembered that specific number.
He took notes, he said.
Awesome. Okay, so a couple more things to wrap up. The big thing that you have to do is you have to practice. You're not going to just magically be good at it. You remember my camel in the beginning? This is where I started with nothing. Like I just pulled it up and just started writing. It took me forever just to find a place to put my name on this. And I probably drew that clock over there a half a dozen times before I got it how I wanted it to. Watching the video by Brad Ovenel Carter and practicing for the first time made me realize that I could really do this. And then again, practicing here and sharing it with others got me to where I am, where this one only took me about 45 minutes to draw. I actually drew this as an assignment, a processing piece for an assignment that we did. So practicing is huge. Have fun with it. It's not something that you're trying to sell. It's just something that you're trying to use to help process memories and notes. And you don't have to have an app. Sometimes if I'm somewhere and I have a meeting and, you've got people that are like, please put all your technology away. I'll grab whatever scrap I've written on receipts, on the back of name tags, whatever I can draw on. I've learned that that's how I process new information in a better way. And then also sharing. If you start sharing, especially on Twitter, and you put hashtag Sketchnote, you'll start to get followed by people that watch Sketchnoters, even if you're not a quote-unquote Sketchnoter. It's a big deal to share your work and see other people share your work. Ellen has encouraged me to share my work. I probably wouldn't have shared half of that stuff on Twitter, but it's interesting to see how other people process it. And then also there's a great sketchnoting presence in the Google Plus community, and also places like Pinterest and Flickr, so that sort of thing. What I love about Paper is it has a community. There's a public stream, so you can actually go in here. This is all Brad Ovenel Carter's sketches, so you can scroll through here and see other people's sketches. I love that. He took a recipe and doodled a recipe. So even if you are an elective teacher, it doesn't mean that you can't use sketchnoting in some way. Again, creating those infographics. See, there's that version of the little star man with the elbows and knees. You can create a template like this for your students and give it to them so they already have some structure to write their stuff down on. One of the ones that I had here at the bottom to show you guys was this right here. This is Brad Ovenall Carter's. So this is the SAMR model kind of reimagined inside of a sketchnote, which is really kind of cool. So there's so many different ways to use it. One of the things that I have found that's helpful for me, if you notice all of mine have these little watermarks on the bottom, it's harder to see once the screen is full, but you see the little blue down at the bottom and it's got my Twitter handle. I don't redraw that every time. It's something that I made and then I just reuse it. So here's one that I made for a friend of mine with her Twitter handle on the side. And that way I don't have to worry about setting up my page. So I either set it up that way where my footnote is kind of at the bottom, or I set it up like, where's this one? Like, where did it go? This one right here, where all of the notes are at the top, where that's my name and the title. And this one I actually pulled in a picture of Tracy. So that way I remember, like, when was this? When did I see this? What was the date? And then obviously my name down at the bottom, because I want people to see that it's my work when I'm done with it. And so, yeah, so practice, have fun, and share your work, and you'll get to see what other people are doing, and it'll inspire you to draw things in a different way. There are some great books and tools out there that you can use. I left it at work this weekend, but there's a sketchnote handbook that I really enjoy. I also really like using my stylus. People do sketch with their fingers, but I found that having this little guy has been really helpful in my precision. It's got a little tip at the end, and it comes with extra tips. So I really like this. It's a Musime Notier, but there's a bunch of different brands out there. Try it. You might like your finger better. You might like drawing old school with paper and pencil better. Either way works really great, as long as you practice. And just like anything else, don't expect to be good at it. If you're not practicing, find something low stakes where you can create and play and mess around with it. So
it's like Austin Kleon says, be an amateur, right? We're all amateurs.
And there's, one of the biggest things that I did for myself for practicing, this is actually this one that I showed you guys earlier. This is my dad. My dad has never drawn anything on an iPad before. And I gave him my iPad and I was like, hey, I want you to draw something for me. And he messed with it for a little bit and then he erased a bunch of stuff and he was like, no, let me try again, let me try again. And so then he went and drew it. So then I took it and copied it and colored it for him. And he thought that was really impressive. It has not picked up his interest in sketchnoting, but he did at least doodle for me, which was nice. So, all right. So Ellen, I think that's it. If you guys have any questions or last minute thoughts.
Last minute thoughts, you guys?
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had, you know what, one of my goals this morning was to have fun. I like write my goals every day. And so my goal was to have fun at work today. And this was so fun. Thank you so much. I really appreciate taking your time. And so now there's a small group of us that started, but I think it's just going to be like infectious throughout our school. So
yeah, definitely. It's something where it's like having an iPad out and doodling in class is a normal, like it's an acceptable thing. Like nobody looks at me funny anymore if I have my iPad out and I'm drawing because they know what I'm doing. If anything, they want to sit next to me because they want to see what I'm drawing.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.